Hi, I'm Maddie and welcome to Marydale Lane. I'm a visual artist and I make art that looks like this. If you're interested in seeing more of that, my website and socials are linked below, but let's go ahead and get into it. I have a cup of coffee. Feel free to grab your own beverage of choice as you tune in. And just a heads up, because I'm trying to be a little bit more, eloquently spoken this time. I have kind of my notes, my talking points over here on the screen. So if you're seeing me glance that way, I'm just looking at those. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that I am wholly unqualified to talk about, which is the idea of discipline and instilling discipline in ourselves. As a very frequent YouTube content consumer, I've been noticing an increasing amount of videos being recommended to me on the topic of, all sorts of topics, but specifically lowering media consumption, trying to increase our attention span, and being less addicted to the dopamine of online scrolling. These are all topics that I personally find really interesting, especially as someone that's more on the anxious side and really doesn't want to be. I love the idea that's going around now of kind of slow living and being more gentle to ourselves and to the planet. And I think that there's a lot of people interested in that too. But here's the thing, is that it's hard. It's really hard. And I am someone that sets a lot of goals and falls off a lot of wagons. I find that I often have a really lofty vision of how wonderful my life will be once I get enough sleep, eat enough of the right foods and cook more of my own meals, exercise more regularly, cut back on my screen time so I spend more time on my creative hobbies, etc., etc., etc. But it doesn't happen. What does happen is that I'll have a really good day or a really good week where I'm doing those things and it feels really good and productive and fulfilling, and then I slide off. And the question that I find myself asking a lot is, why is it so hard to make ourselves do things that feel good? And I think it's because the things that fulfill us don't feel good, or at least they don't feel good the whole time that we're doing them. Or if they do feel good, they're still objectively more difficult than collapsing onto the couch at the end of the day and scrolling Instagram or your short form content of choice. And this is, of course, where discipline comes in. Discipline, as I'm defining here, as doing the thing even if you don't want to. So right now, I'm doing NaNoWriMo for the very first time. If you're not familiar with it, NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, where the goal is, as you might expect, to write a novel in a month. I believe the official word count goal is around 50,000 words. My wife is an avid writer and she's currently doing her third NaNoWriMo, and this year she's convinced me to join in. But the thing is, I'm not a writer, or at least I'm not really a writer. I've written little snippets of things here and there. I have fun coming up with characters, but I have never written a complete work of fiction, not even like a short story. So why on earth did I agree to write a novel in a month? I've been asking myself that too. But the main reason is that my wife is the most disciplined person that I know. She has ADHD, but even when her hyperfixation on a current story fades, she's still able to push through because she values being able to see something through to the finish. It's something that I really admire as someone that is constantly starting things and finding myself not able to finish them. So when she asked me to join the writing challenge for the month, I said yes. Not because I have the goal of being a published author. I don't. But because I wanted to prove that I could consistently work toward a goal, even on days when I didn't want to. So in essence, I'm using NaNoWriMo to kind of prove to myself that I have the capability to work on other goals that are even more meaningful to me. So even though I don't want to write a novel, or at least I don't really want to publish one or have that be my career, I am a visual artist, and there are lots of other projects that I do want to create that I'm really struggling to get through. And so here's how it's been going so far. Every single night so far this month, my wife and I have a routine. We have dinner and we watch an episode of something, and then we split up to our respective workspaces. I pull up my document, I decide how many words I'm going to commit to that night, say out loud to myself, I don't want to do this, and then I do it anyway. Because of course in the moment I don't want to do it. I would much rather get the easy dopamine from watching my favorite YouTubers or scrolling Pinterest. But does it make me feel really proud of the work I've put into it? Yes. Is it magical to see the story start to come together and build up into this quickly growing document? Yeah, sure it is. Does it fill me with a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment? Yes, it does. Even though it's a lot of times not fun, it is, without a doubt to me, it's worth doing. We have a few friends that are doing NaNoWriMo with us this year, which has been really fun. But one of our friends said something that I thought was really interesting, and I've been thinking about it ever since she said it. And when we were talking about our word goals, she said that, I'm reading this kind of word for word, by the way, but she said that she's being very gentle with herself and the guidelines for the challenge, doing what feels best day by day, and just making sure that she writes some each day. I thought that this was a really cool and very self-compassionate take on a sort of challenge like this. But at the same time, I knew that it would not work for me. I know from a lifetime of living with this brain that being too permissive with myself does not produce work that I am proud of. And I wish I could be gentle with myself and still get the results I want, but I can't always do that because I will stop when it gets hard. And with everything that you are trying to build discipline for, whether that's writing or making a habit to exercise, learning to cook instead of eating out, practicing a language or an instrument, or developing a hobby, at the time, at some point, it's going to get hard. And even though you want the end results of those habits, at the time you're probably not going to want to do it. It'll be hard or tiring or time-consuming or boring, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth it. The more practice you get at pushing through discomfort, the better you get at it. So far, my wife and I have done 9 days of NaNoWriMo. I have hardly ever done 9 consistent days of any creative project. But right now, I'm training myself that every single night after dinner, I set a goal and I reach it. I have an accountability buddy to commiserate and encourage me, but I am putting in the work. But there is something else to consider, so let's be clear about it. NaNoWriMo isn't meant to be a long-term sustainable practice. I think that if anyone were to try to do this, but especially speaking for myself, if I did this amount of writing or any creative practice at this intensity for a long time, I would burn out. And that's not ideal, and that's not the goal. But what I'm learning through this process is that I am capable of forming daily habits, and I am capable of doing things that push me toward my goals, even if I don't want to. So, how do we do the things that we don't want to do in order to better our lives and achieve our dreams? There are a lot of people with way more expertise than me that have written entire books on this idea, but here's what works specifically for me. Number one is setting an extremely specific goal. Every night this month, I've pulled out my document, looked at the total word count, and decided on a number of words that I write until I've met that number, which sounds easier than it is. For me, I have found that a time-boxed goal, for example, I will write for 30 minutes, doesn't work for me because I will waste time. I will get distracted. Whereas with a word count goal, if I get distracted or my mind wanders, I still know that I can't fully relax and move on until I meet the word count. So I might as well focus in and try to get it over with. The second thing that helps me is setting up the physical environment. So throughout the past several days, I've been experimenting with shifting kind of the ambiance of my workspace. So lighting a candle, having a nice cup of coffee or tea, experimenting with the lighting, sitting on the floor, etc., can make my brain more easily encouraged towards productivity. And probably the most important bit is self-encouragement. Very frequently throughout this process, I pause while I'm writing and I think, wow, this is the most that I've ever written. And I really try to let that sink in, because that feeling, that sense of accomplishment, is a feeling worth suffering for. Because if you have a brain, at least a brain like mine, forcing it to do something that it doesn't want to do does feel like suffering. But remembering that sense of pride and that like feeling of fulfillment when you get through it anyway can help push through that. At least it does for me. Sometimes it's hard to get started and then easier once I find momentum. Sometimes it's easy to get started, but harder as I move through the story and I have to struggle to meet word count. And sometimes it's hard to get started and it's hard in the middle and it's hard at the end and it's a struggle the whole time. But the thing is to keep showing up for yourself anyway. Last night I was whining to my wife that I didn't want to do it, and I said that I would have quit if she wasn't doing it too. I said I would have already given up on it because I'm not having fun, or at least not actively having fun the whole time while I'm writing, but I don't want you to be disappointed in me. And of course, like a good wife, she said, I wouldn't be disappointed in you. And I went, okay, yeah, but I would be disappointed in me. And so she made a really good point, which is, then you aren't doing this for me, you're doing it for you. And that's true. I think if you're watching this video, then you've probably also experienced the disappointment of dropping a hobby or a habit, and this time I didn't want to feel that. In creativity, sometimes finishing something is the most important thing, even if it isn't good. If I was focused on making my story the best novel it could be, I would still be on chapter 1. It is extremely hard to progress forward if you are constantly overanalyzing everything that's come before. Whereas if you focus on getting to the finish line and you go through completing the project, you are able to go back and revise or see exactly what went wrong and have a much better understanding of your creative process. I heard a saying once that perfect is the enemy of done, and I definitely think that there's truth to that. Your brain learns so much from doing a project from start to finish, rather than just starting and restarting and restarting and restarting. So I am making a promise to myself. I am going to finish NaNoWriMo. I am going to write my terrible novel that will never see the light of day. And I'm gonna feel really proud about it with the knowledge that I am capable of pushing myself, and I'll be seeing what other project-based goals might work for me to develop other areas of my creativity. As someone that's interested in visual art, I really want to see what kind of project I could complete if I could throw this amount of discipline and consistency into my artistic practice. But again, like we talked about earlier, NaNoWriMo isn't meant to be a sustainable model. So I think part of my focus will be finding something that'll work for me long term. But yeah, I hope this was relatable for you, or maybe gave you a push you needed to commit to something, or if nothing else, to commit to yourself. You are capable of doing hard things and of seeing a project through. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!